G'day everybody and welcome back to a brand new video here on the YouTube channel. And with us reaching the halfway point of this year's AFL Finals, I thought I would share the story of Michael Tuck, aka the greatest finals player to ever live. Now if you guys do go on to enjoy this video, could you please show me that by liking the video, subscribing to the channel if you're new, and of course hit that notification bell so you can be notified when new videos coming out. Enough wasting your time, let's just get straight into it. Now when you think of finals players, you probably think of players like Dustin Martin as one of the best players to ever play finals, but Michael Tuck puts Dusty to shame with him playing in a grand final 11 times. Michael Tuck played his first AFL game in round 8 of the 1972 season against the Tigers, but unfortunately lost that game by 7 points. In 1974, Tuck played his first ever final, being a qualifying final, but the Hawks ended up going out in straight sets. But 2 years later, in 1976, the Hawks finished the season in second place on the ladder, and during the finals they faced off against North Melbourne in the AFL Grand Final. At quarter time, the scores were 36-26 and the Hawks led by 10 points. But at half time they had extended that lead and it was now 66-47. And as it reached three-quarter time, the margin was back to 10 points and the scores were 78-68. But eventually the Hawks ran away with it, with the scores being at full time 100-70, and the Hawks won the game by 30 points. But Michael Tuck had racked up 14 disposals and had won his first of the future 7 premierships of his career. Just 2 years later, the Hawks finished in second place again and had a rematch against the Kangaroos in that year's grand final. At quarter time, the Hawks had led by 19 points, with the scores being 14-33. At halftime, North Melbourne had taken the lead and seemed to go on a bit of a goal spree as the scores were 50-46. But it didn't matter, as the very next quarter the Hawks took the lead, and going into the fourth quarter they were up by 22 points. And at full time, the Hawks ran away with the win and got the job done by 20 points. And as Michael Tuck won his second premiership, he also racked up 23 disposals in that game. In the year 1983, the Hawks finished second on the ladder again, and it seems to be a good sign for them to finish in second place as they progressed onto the grand final, this time against the Essendon Bombers. The Hawks were up by 18 points going into that second quarter, with the scores being 36-18, which it seemed at the time it would be a close grand final. But the game had a massive turnaround at half time, with the scores being 82-25 and the Hawks had led by 57 points. But the margin was extended by a lot more than intended at three-quarter time, with the scores being 114-27 and the Hawks were going into the final quarter with an 87-point lead. And no surprise that they went on to win that game, with the final margin being 83 points. And Michael Tuck played a better game than the last grand final, with him racking up 27 disposals and also received his third premiership medal. The Hawks were lucky enough to finish in first place in the 1986 season and faced off against Carlton in that year's grand final. At quarter time the scores were 36-11, with the Hawks going into the second quarter with a 25-point lead. The Blues were down by 21 at half time and the scores were 56-35. But the Hawks made sure to prevent any comeback from the Blues, with the scores being 99-49 and the Hawks were in front by 50 points. And as the final sign blew, the Hawks won the game by 42 points and Michael Tuck had won his 4th premiership and racked up 10 disposals. In 1988, 2 years after the Hawks' last premiership, the Hawks finished the season in first place and went on to verse Melbourne in the AFL Grand Final. At the start of the game, the margin was just under 3 goals, with the scores being 28-11 and the Hawks were in front by 17. The Hawks didn't stop there though, with the scores being 69-20 and they had extended their lead and were up by 49 points. But Melbourne never seemed to be in the game, as they were down by 56 points at three-quarter time, and as the Hawks were on 100 points, the D's were only on 46. As the final sign sounded, the Hawks were the 1988 premiers and they won the game by 96 points. And Michael Tuck racked up the same amount of disposals as last time, being 10, and he won his 5th AFL premiership. Just 1 year later, the Hawks had hoped to go back-to-back in 1989, and they were on track to after making it back to the grand final and were versing the Geelong Cats. At quarter time, the Hawks were up by 40 points, and at half time they were up by 37, and going into the final quarter they had a 36-point lead. And the Cats nearly had a massive comeback, but by the end of the game, the Hawks had won the game by 6 points and the scores were 144-138. And after racking up 11 disposals, Michael Tuck had won his 6th AFL premiership. And now, the 1991 AFL season. The Hawks have finished the season in second place, and week 1 of the finals, the Hawks faced off against the West Coast Eagles. And after winning that game by 23 points, they moved on to verse Geelong in their next final, where they won that game by 2 points and moved on to a grand final. The Hawks faced off against the West Coast Eagles in the 1991 Toyota AFL Grand Final, and this also happened to be Michael Tuck's final game of his career. This was also his 426th AFL game, being the second most games any player has ever played. West Coast had the lead at quarter time with the scores being 31-22 and went into the second quarter with a lot of confidence. But at half time the Hawks had changed that and the Hawks were up by 10 points going into the third quarter, and going to the fourth quarter they were also up by 10 points. But during that final quarter the Hawks won the game pretty comfortably by a margin of 53 points. And in Michael Tuck's final game, he racked up 10 disposals and he had ended his career with the most grand final wins being 7. And between 1992 and 2013, they carried on Tuck's legacy with the Michael Tuck Medal being presented to the best player during the AFL preseason competition. And for those who don't believe Michael Tuck is the best finals player, he played 39 finals with 11 of them being grand finals. And that just about wraps up this video. Now, if you guys did enjoy this video, could you please show me that by liking the video, subscribing to the channel if you're new, and of course, hitting that notification bell so you can be notified when a new video is coming out. Anyway, I'll see you guys next time.